So first up, joining Dietmar today, we have Rob Curran. Rob is a consultant analyst from Reading Room. Rob is a digital strategist specializing in social media and product development. We also have Mark Sherwin with us today. Mark's the commercial director for Precedent. Precedent are a top digital agency here in the UK. Mark's been a driving force behind that growth. And we also have Justin Gale. Justin Gale is director of digital at Healthspan. And Healthspan are the UK's leading direct-to-consumer vitamin and supplement supplier.
So I'm Rob, I work for Reading Room, and I'm a strategist there. We're a digital agency in Soho. And I'm going to talk about lifetime customer, and I think we'll probably find that there's a load of different ways that you can define a lifetime customer. And what I want to talk about is probably one aspect of lifetime customers and really one type of a lifetime customer that might be a small segment of your customers, but potentially be a really influential segment. So what is a lifetime customer? Here's a couple of answers to that question. It could be someone who just buys our product, your brand's product, again and again. It might be that. It could be someone whose needs change over a period of years and they're buying different types of products throughout different parts of their lifetime. Or it could really just mean a lifetime. It could be someone who buys a product for the whole of their life, and we're catering for that kind of customer. And those are all like valid definitions of a lifetime customer, and we should be catering for those people if they are indeed relevant to our brand. But I want to ask, what if the real lifetime customers aren't any of those things? Obviously, there are loads and loads of formulas out there that will help you define the value of lifetime customers, and anyone who's done an MBA will know that there are tons of these formulas, and you can start defining metrics about lifetime value, repeat purchase, and you can improve and improve on those metrics. And we can measure those things, and we can measure repeat purchase, we can measure the value of customers, and we can improve on those. But I wonder if those traditional sort of business metrics are missing some really influential people in the audience. And we should remember, as Albert Einstein said, that not everything that can be counted counts, and not everything that counts can be counted. I think there are some people out there, lifetime customers, who aren't showing up in those metrics. What about the stuff that's more difficult to measure? What if our lifetime customers aren't even customers? What if they're not current or recent customers? They haven't bought from our brand in a while. What if they bought from you once and haven't bought again? Or if they bought from you ages ago and for whatever reason, circumstances, they haven't bought again? What about the real evangelists? Those people who really, really love your brand and they tell everyone, but they, for whatever reason, aren't buying and repeat purchasing. I think those people really matter, and they're not showing up in those traditional business analytics. It's hard for us to improve on those metrics. We all know people who love certain brands. Jasper loves Skittles. You know, there's people everywhere. I love Google. I really love Google. And that love really has a sort of tenuous relationship to whether I purchase. You know, I use Gmail. I use Google Drive. But the people sitting in Google are not going to look at my metrics and think this guy loves Google. But I do. I just think the company is great, and I tell everyone all the time, I'm doing it right now. I basically work for Google. You know, they're not going to see that really in their metrics that they're measuring at the company. So some people might buy your brand once, and they'll love you forever. But by focusing on recent customers and current customers, we might be missing the really important people. So this is a traditional purchase funnel. It goes from awareness through to evaluation and down to purchase. And the problem with that is that it doesn't cater for influence or these lifetime customers or evangelists who really love your brand and the influence that they're having on other people. McKinsey, a very long time ago, came up with a different model a different sort of purchase funnel. And it starts off with this trigger for a purchase. You need to buy something, if it's a washing machine, say, and you make an initial consideration, and you go through this period of evaluation where you look at all the different brands, and you make a decision and you purchase. You'll then have a post-purchase experience. It'll either be good or bad. And when you need a washing machine again, if that post-purchase experience has been excellent, you're just going to zip back, straight back to the one you bought, and that's the loyalty loop. If you have a really good experience with a product, you'll just be in that loyalty loop. And the thing is, those people in the loyalty loop are influencing other people. Dietmar mentioned this. He said 97%. This is a Nielsen survey. We know that it's around 90% of people really care about the opinions of the people they know, and they'll seek those opinions when they need to buy something. And it's called known peer influence, and it's massive. At 90% is a huge, huge influence. It's a powerful aspect of marketing. And so the more people your brand has in that loyalty loop, the more they can influence people positively. So we should be careful when we're looking at those metrics, those business value, customer value metrics, about saying this guy who repeat purchases all the time is more valuable than another guy who's purchased once. Because that guy who purchased once might be influencing people all the time. Some people buy little and influence a lot. A good example of this is my dad. When he was younger, he bought a second-hand, beaten-up Jaguar, and he loves Jaguars. He cannot stop talking about Jaguars, but he's never owned a Jaguar for 30 years. He just loves it. And that's influencing people. He's influencing people all the time when they're trying to buy cars, and they can never shut him up about Jaguars. So what is a lifetime customer? Well, we think it's someone who may or may not be a customer, and that's important. They might not be a current customer. We might not be in regular contact with them. We think it's also someone who cares about your brand, and crucially, it's someone who tells other people that they care. There's an element of advocacy there. So what do we do about them? The first thing to do, I think, is find them. And that's more difficult than it sounds, and it's probably the subject of another talk and another day. But we should be looking for the signals that evangelists give off, and they might be different from the signals that we're currently measuring. So we should work out what they are. We should define the behaviors that constitute a fan, an evangelist, someone who really, really loves your brand, and we should look for them and then start to appeal to those people. We should automate that search as much as we can and trigger those behaviors. That we should set those behaviors as triggers to serve them really personalized content. Go ahead and serve them really well. And then the next thing to do, once we've found those people that really care about our brand, is to impress them. It's like Dietmar said, exceed expectations. Really, like, blow expectations out of the water. The classic example of this is a guy going online, buying a load of crates of wine from a wine company. They follow him on Twitter. They find out he's a massive Arsenal fan. And a couple of months later, through the post comes a signed Arsenal shirt for no reason. And that's huge. That's really, really influential, because he didn't do anything really to warrant that shirt. They just sent it to him. And that bought brand loyalty. That guy will probably never buy wine from anywhere else after that, because it was a really powerful exceeding of expectations. And like Dietmar said, it's not easy to get people to love you. You've got to exceed those expectations. You have to go above and beyond the call of duty. And in digital terms, that means really, really clever nurture strategies, like that Arsenal shirt. Go above and beyond and nurture those leads and tie it to really intelligent and sensitive content. And we've seen some really good examples of that kind of intelligent content this morning. We should, wherever we can, facilitate evangelism, whether it's on your site, anywhere on your digital presence, offline, online. Just make sure that people can shout about your brand if they want to. And if we do all that, we should be able to turn normal people, normal customers, into repeat customers, into lifelong advocates and evangelists for our brand, and really into unpaid and trusted salesmen. And I think that's the influence of a lot of lifetime customers out there. Thanks, that's all from me.
Hi, I'm Mark. I'm from Precedent, a digital agency, as many of the speakers are today. And I want to just pick up on this idea of a lifetime customer value is about creating a lifetime customer journey. And that's often a lot more than you imagine. And I'm going to talk about something quite mundane, because I think it's quite easy to think about all the exciting things that Dieter's been talking about, etc., whilst forgetting that actually a lot of what makes a lifetime customer are the simple steps in the process of taking them through a journey. I thought the best way is I didn't want to show you websites particularly today. I wanted to think about my personal experience. And I thought a useful experience is about 3 or 4 years ago, I did an MBA. And I was looking to do an executive MBA, and I was searching around. And I could have gone and looked at the buildings, but that's Cass on the right and Imperial on the left, and they both look very similar. So obviously, I went to the website. Not the world's most beautiful website, I might add, but went in there, had a look, and actually started to build quite a lot of engagement with this brand. Because what I found that this had that other people didn't have is they had a whole range of courses, evening talks, events that I could go to without having made any commitment yet. So I thought, this is great, you know, I can actually go and see what the place is like, I can start to get involved. And I actually ended up going to about 5 or 6 different talks in the evenings on a whole range of topics. But they never joined that up with the fact that I wanted to go there and do an MBA. No one ever came up and asked me, do you want to do an MBA here? I was just going and attending events and courses. So I'd got a good experience at the place, and I signed up for my MBA and turned up for the first day, and that was my first day, which wasn't quite what they'd said in the brochure, which was in a sinking ship simulator down in Portsmouth. But they said, look, actually, you don't need to ever look at that website again. You're no longer a potential customer, a prospect. We've got this wonderful environment called CassLearn. So they took me away from the website that I'd actually built up quite a lot of use with and built up some bookmarks and was getting the RSS feeds on the events. They said, don't look at that anymore, look at this. Now, if you thought the website was dull, this is dull as dishwater. But in reality, it was something that I came to completely rely on. It was where I'd blog about the subjects that I was doing, I'd submit all my coursework through it, I'd access all the directory of contacts and friends through it. More importantly, for my dissertation, I stored all of my references, all of the material that I had done research on, every paper that I'd looked at in the 2 years was on this system. And actually what was interesting is during this, a guy called Gareth sent me through a LinkedIn group, which was the Cass alumni LinkedIn group, and he said, look, I know you're not an alumni yet, but you're very welcome to join because you are going to be an alumni. And I thought, that's great. This wasn't an official group. This was not something done by Cass, this was done by an individual. But he realised that even though I wasn't his customer yet, if he'd get me engaged now, and actually it was very useful. When I had a problem, I'd ask someone in the alumni community and they'd start to answer my problem. So I graduated in an extraordinary ceremony, extraordinary because I had to sit through 1,000 people graduating. I know you've all done it, and it's a pretty dull affair. And the next day, I tried to log on to CassLearn, and I was gone. I no longer existed as a customer of theirs. They said, no, goodbye, good riddance. I'm their best advocate. I love Cass. I thought it was a fantastic course. But no, you can't have access to anything you've got to. You can't look back at your coursework. You can't read those blogs and chuckle about what you'd learned along the way. And you can't get to any of my resources. But I did get an email from the alumni community saying, hi, welcome to the alumni community. Would you like to come and register for the alumni community? I tried to log in with my ID details that were etched onto my brain, and they didn't work because I was now an alumni. I was a different person. I was in a different segment of the organisation. I got in there, logged in, and the great thing was it actually gave me access to all the resources that I'd had when I was at Cass. You know, what a fantastic thing. As a lifetime customer, they said, you can have access to our libraries, our online databases, but they'd scrubbed all of my favourites, all of my links, all of my research papers that I'd stacked up over 2 years because I was now an alumni, so I didn't need those. So even though I had access to the system, I started again. And then worse, to add insult to injury, Cass official alumni said, do you want to come and join our official alumni group? I'm thinking, hang on, I've been part of an alumni group for 2 years. And funnily enough, there was nothing on the Cass alumni group, and they were probably wondering why they couldn't nurture a relationship with their alumni, and the reason was because someone else had done it earlier in the process. Bizarrely enough, I started looking at Cass recently and discovered Cass Knowledge, and they've got a fantastic amount of information up there. Actually, one of the guys who was on my course, who was a Newsnight presenter, was interviewing every week one of the professors at Cass about a relevant issue and putting that video online. I had no idea of that, even though he was in my class, because I didn't look at this when I was a student, because I looked at CassLearn, and this wasn't on CassLearn. So it's taken me 3 years to catch up with this, even though it's a very useful resource. So, what is a customer lifetime value in a journey? It's not this. it's about understanding the holistic digital experience that somebody goes through. Obviously, it's also other touch points, but I think actually at the basic plumbing level, it's understanding that your customer will go into customer service stages, they'll go into where they're experiencing your product, they'll go into a post-buying period, as Rob was talking about, where they can be an advocate. And you need to map that whole process. And I think the job of creating lifetime customer value is about creating a consistent customer lifelong journey. So here we've got something where looking at students throughout the process, they're using a website, they're using social, they're using mobile, they may be using email, they may be using print. And actually thinking about how do I create one joined up experience? So this means it needs to have a different digital model because, bizarrely enough, we've been talking a lot about customer and we've talked about products and shifting product, and that's typically something that operates within the marketing sphere. And I think this is the problem I see, that people are actually talking about lifetime customers, but they're still thinking about it in silos. So that, you know, you'll have the marketing team or admissions team thinking about the lifetime customer, you'll have the careers advice service thinking about a lifetime customer, and you'll have someone who's doing professional development thinking about it. And it needs to stop doing that, and we need to think about really true lifelong relationship management from cradle to grave. The good news, and I have to say this, but absolutely, is that Sitecore and technologies like this are enablers for this. And I think until 2 or 3 years ago, it was quite easy to have the excuse, oh, but it's too difficult, we can't do this because the technology doesn't allow it. I haven't got a content management system that will allow this. I haven't got a CRM that will allow this. I don't think the technology is the blocker now, and I think, you know, a lot of the case studies you'll see today show that the technologies are there that will enable this to happen. I think the problem is actually much more organisational, and to me, the big issue is that organisations don't have someone who is a champion of the customer over their lifetime. Now, there are lots of debates about how you could do this. You can have a customer champion, you can have a customer experience champion. My view is that digital is one of the first places you can bring this together, because digital is by its nature something that someone experiences throughout their, you know, they might go to the showroom to buy a car once, but they'll have a digital experience with you throughout their whole lifetime. There's some quite good stuff if you look at it online at the moment, a debate about the role of a chief digital officer. There are some who say, what a ridiculous idea, why would you have a channel-specific champion? My view is that these are absolutely needed in one form or other, call them what you will, because I think to get everybody together from marketing, operations, customer service, all those parts together and thinking, actually, how do we create a consistent, collaborative, lifelong journey for that customer, you need to bring that together. I'd like to think that in 5 years' time, this role would then be redundant because you'd actually become the CEO surely should be doing this. And certainly, you know, there should be people who are customer champions across all the channels. But right now, we need to sort of get everybody together and get them to start to think about where are those fall-off points. You'll have them in every organisation. So you might be thinking, well, how does that apply to me? I'm not an education establishment. Well, I'd say this works across every single segment of the marketplace. And we do strategic reports, and there's one on the left, which is around alumni graduates there. But actually, we did one for the financial sector, which was all about isolation or integration. We're doing one for the destination sector, which is around the Dream Day Out, or membership organisations. And actually, all of these different types of organisations have these kind of siloed approaches. And I think if you can break them down, then you can achieve an awful lot. This is the one that we've just been working on for attractions and destinations, where it's from how do you create desire, research, engage, attend, and then create the memories. And what's interesting, again, is we're working with lots of attractions where different departments deal with these things. There'll be somebody thinking about how do I market it. There'll be somebody who's giving the information online. There'll be something completely different who's thinking about the experience when someone's at that destination, at that event, at that attraction. And there's probably nobody thinking about how do I really promote advocacy and memories that drive desire. So whichever sector you're in, I think that these models work. This is one we did for RSPCA in Australia, where we looked at how you take someone who doesn't know about RSPCA all the way through to a supporter and then an advocate. And we mapped the different channels, so looked at how important, for instance, social media or the web or mobile or printed communications or face-to-face communications were at different parts in that journey. And I think creating these kind of lifetime customer journey maps enable you to start to break down those barriers and silos and really create long-term customer value. So that's my thoughts on it. Thank you very much for listening.
I'm Justin Gale. I work for Healthspan, which is not a digital marketing agency. So I've been asked to come today and just talk a little bit about what lifetime customer value means to Healthspan. But you've probably never heard about Healthspan. Well, last year we distributed over 7 billion tablets and capsules in the United Kingdom. So we must be doing something right.
About 90% of those were distributed to existing customers. So lifetime customer value means everything to us as a business. We're actually the #1 direct supplier of vitamins and supplements in the UK market. We have over 60% market share in that market. And if you think about our competitors on the high street, you need to think about Boots or Holland & Barrett. But increasingly, we compete with online merchants such as Amazon, Tesco Merchant Store, etc. So I think if you were over 60 and read the Daily Mail, you probably would have heard of us. I'm not going to speak for 10 minutes. I'll probably speak for about 5 minutes, but I hopefully will provoke a few thoughts, a few questions for the panel discussion afterwards. So as I said, lifetime value means everything to Healthspan. All of our customer communication programs are built around lifetime value. And yes, we use the formula. This is a very simplified version of the MBA taught formula. But it allows us to start breaking down our customers into different behavior patterns. For example, we don't call a user a customer after the first purchase. They're just a prospect. We only call a customer once they start to build up a behavior pattern with us. So after that first year, they become a customer after several purchases. Then as we move into subsequent years, they become loyal customers. And we can start understanding how we treat these people differently, how we understand their purchase behaviors, but also their personas differently. So I think what we all need to know is, what does this mean for digital marketing? Well, I think the most important, sorry, this has gone off. The most important thing to start off with is a lifetime value approach from an acquisition perspective means I can pay more money for these customers, which means I can do a lot more to attract them. Using a 2-year payback model like this allows me to really look deeper into that customer behavior, really start looking at what levers I can pull to get more market coverage right through the sales funnel. Also looking at where I can really just get more volume. And I'm going to give you just a really super quick example of this, that using this example, instead of actually using a first purchase payback model, which I'm sure a lot of you use, in this case, I'd be able to pay £10 for that customer. But actually, over a 2-year payback model, I can actually spend about 65 quid on that customer. Think about that. £10, what can I do? I can do a bit of PPC measured on last click performance, maybe a bit of, a little bit of affiliate work, maybe some SEO. It really limits the amount of activity I can do to bring customers into my brand. With the 2-year payback model in this case, I can look at much more through the funnel activity. I can look at maybe putting in place an attribution model so I can understand the different ways this customer interacts within that sales funnel. Without understanding the lifetime value of that customer, I actually don't think it's appropriate to be putting in place attribution models, because you really can't go out and spend enough money certainly within our type of business to be able to do this. So within this formula, I think it's also really important to understand what levers you can pull to give yourself more traction, to give yourself a bigger CPA, because at the end of the day, that means we can do more and more. We can delight our customers, as Dietmar said. We can spend more money at the top of the purchase funnel, which we all like to do. So I think that the first part of that is just really, how do I get more money in that first basket purchase? And this is where effective cross and upsell programs come in. And I think a really good example, and one that really excites me, is where we get into marketing automation, where we can sell a customer on a gateway product. We can put automated upsell programs in place to get that customer into higher margin products. That allows me to really accurately forecast how much margin I'm going to have coming through my business model, so I can afford to pay more and more money up front on my CPAs. But the single biggest multiplier in this equation is obviously the retention rate. The key thing we need to understand as a business, and I'm sure you need to understand as a business as well, is not all customers are created equal. Not all channels perform the same way. And not all channels and all customers actually need the same retention activity. So what we start getting to is a situation where we can't just have a single brand message, a single brand manifestation. We must have many different types of brands, many different types of brand personas, so we can actually start becoming more and more relevant to our customers. So, what does the lifetime value approach mean for customer retention? Well, it's all about retention, isn't it? We all know that, and I think there were some interesting points made earlier about how do we put a value on the customer that's out there recommending. I think that kind of sits outside what I'm talking about today, but I think it's a super pertinent point. But we generally break retention down into two areas. First is building habit. As I said earlier, we don't count a customer as a customer until they've built a purchase habit with us. Once you build a habit, it's quite difficult to break that habit. I know Dietmar talked earlier about getting people to fall in love with you over and over again. I challenge that a little bit. Yes, you do need to do that, but actually once somebody forms a habit for something, it can be quite difficult to break that habit. So there is a playoff there. The second piece, and I think more importantly, is the ability to give great personalized brand experiences to the customer. And the way we manifest that is through post-rationalization. So telling the customer they made a bloody brilliant decision coming to Healthspan after they bought from us. So we look at creating as many different brand personas as we can and delivering great post-rationalization of the purchase, great post-rationalization of the social experience they're going to get, and also we layer on the services after that first purchase. We try to do that as high touch as possible. We are a direct marketing company at our core, so high touch is what we do well. Where this gets really interesting is when we merge high touch and high tech and start delivering those personalized messages. And I think, again, a couple of years ago, this was too difficult. Without a Sitecore, you couldn't really do this. But now this technology really facilitates us to put all of these theories we've been talking about for years in digital marketing into practice. And it's really quite exciting. I'm going to leave you just with kind of, I think, 3 thoughts that may challenge slightly where you're spending your marketing pounds. In terms of building brand, where do you best spend your money? Do you spend it before the customer's purchased from you the first time or after they've purchased from you the first time? I think if you start thinking about that, you within a customer lifetime value model, after that first purchase can often be more effective than before it. The second piece is, who do I reward more? Do I reward loyal customers more, or do I chase disloyal customers harder? And I think from a commercial perspective, it can be quite interesting doing the maths on that. Marketing doctrine says you reward loyalty, but actually commercially sometimes it's much more effective to chase disloyal customers. And lastly, and I think kind of speaks to what some of the other guys have talked about, is can we just really dump all acquisition and retention spending and and achieve all of our business growth through peer-to-peer recommendations? I think theoretically that would be a fantastic place to get to. Practically it's very difficult. I'd love to be standing up here in a couple of years' time and talking about how we did that, how we moved to a model where our customers were selling all of our products for us. I'm not sure I can. So that's it for me, pretty quick. I'm about all day if you've got any questions, and I'm hiring good people all the time who know Sitecore. So if you're after a job and you want to move out of London to Bristol, come and see me.
I think we're at 3 really interesting concepts, and I hope that I can summarize them and with due respect to what you say. So it's going to be a little bit of a summary. I think in the first talk with the reading room, we heard that a lifetime customer is basically an attitude. It is, you look at an attitude, you want to connect with, you want to grow those people. They don't actually have to be a customer yet, but they might influence other people. They might be the people that evangelize, okay? In the last talk, we had the exact opposite, which is a lifetime customer is a fact. There are certain numbers, and you can work with those people. To make it really brutal, it's more, how do I squeeze more out of the lemon? You know, when do I start squeezing where, rather than can I grow my orchard and stuff like that. And you basically talked about that a lifetime customer is a process. It changes over time, and you want to be found. You want to be a lifetime customer, and there's this huge opportunity, and sometimes people make it artificially complicated for you to become a lifetime customer. So you would like to give rather than to just receive. Is that correct? Okay. So if you look at that, I think the core difference is the difference in my point, and all those, and I think everybody, just to say that again, everybody basically says that a lifetime customers or customer relationships in general work over the whole spectrum of your divisions. So you have to unite your divisions. You have to have a person who knows the call center and the Facebook and the website, everything. It can't be that you have little silos and expect a lifetime customer to operate in those silos, because the lifetime customer sees you as a whole in general, as one entity. My question is, because we heard hard facts, to me the hard fact thing obviously is appealing because it's a hard fact. However, if we are marketeers, we know that the emotional relationship is very, very lasting. How do you feel about the hard fact versus the emotional, or the please listen to me?
Well, I think what was quite interesting is that the formula at the end makes a lot of sense. But I think the opportunity to add advocacy into it and as you say, measure that. And I suppose the question is, how much more could you spend on a customer that you know has behaviours out there beyond your brand that are powerful from an advocacy perspective? Because if you could identify that and understand that in their behaviours, so maybe even looking at that, then you could spend a lot more on those people and perhaps less on the people who you know that they may buy off you and they may build a habit, but they'll never tell anybody else. And I think that's an interesting model. I don't think the systems are out there yet, but it's a nice thing to think about and explore, I think.
Yeah. Measurability is the problem, isn't it? You know, we have to justify every spend, every pound. You know, it's a very difficult market out there, so you know, we've got to get really aggressive with the models we use to acquire customers and keep customers. Adding in the emotional aspect is great, and of course we always fight to do that as marketeers, but it's a very difficult one. I think again it's about, exactly as you say, it's about having the right tools to do that.
But I think the interesting thing is, you know, with something like Sitecore, you could do that because you could start to see, well, so of the people who I've retained, the ones who have commented more, advocated more on the website, etc., shared content with other people, there are the ways that you can analyse that and use that to actually feed that into quite a kind of a hard facts formula, I guess.
I completely agree. I think what we find certainly with our brand is, because we're selling health supplements, people kind of don't want to make that sort of connection with irritable bowel syndrome on our website.
We're selling a Porsche, it's different.
Yeah, exactly. So we find a lot of the advocacy is that kind of, you know, talking to your uncle at a Christmas party, you know, at your family Christmas, and he says, oh, I had irritable bowel syndrome, I took Healthspan, it was fantastic. So yes, there's the whole digital side of it, but it's more the unmeasured conversation that is the key for us. So brand advocacy, and as I said at the end, we would love to get to the stage where our customers sell to our other customers, because actually our product lends itself to that sort of promotion, but I'm not sure how we create a formula to bring that in.
I think that mixture of facts and that emotional connection is important, in that the fact has to be the foundation of it. They have to have a good experience with Healthspan as the very base of it, or, you know, that no one's going to advocate for something they had a bad experience with, obviously. So that serving a good experience is a must. And then, you know, there are some, I think that more emotional connection, there are a lot of companies at the moment are sort of experimenting, giving that 10% or 20% of their time or resources to experimenting. HP as an example, I know that they have a department in the US that are just experimenting on social media, often privately, so that those people that are experimenting are sort of native to the social networks, that like Snapchat, that kind of thing. They know when it launches, they know what to do with it immediately. And often, like you said, those experiments can become more important than the fact. You know, that 10% becomes a huge driver of profit and advocacy. But obviously, they have to have a good experience. You know, so I think it's that combination of fact and emotion.
Yeah, what I sometimes think is that having a good experience is basically, if you wouldn't have a good experience, you would have a problem, right? So it could be a barrier if it were bad. However, it's not necessarily an engine. And I think the engine is beyond the expectation, the Arsenal shirt and stuff like that. All of a sudden, you become an evangelist. And that is what I call the falling in love over and over again. As a quick statement, I think it's... how long do you think love lasts in the room? There's a scientific
Until you get married?
Okay, the scientific answer is 400 milliseconds. And the reason is that in 400 milliseconds, you can change your opinion. If you come home and you see your loved one, like if you're a jealous person, you see your loved one having sex with somebody else, that love is challenged immediately. If you believe in your brand and all of a sudden something terrible happens, that love is challenged immediately. And that's why I moved from I personally moved from the decision loop to a thing that I call decision membranes. And decision membranes are things where the other people's opinions, the newspaper, did a volcano explode and you can't fly right now or not, you know, all this exists in this one moment on the membrane, and then comes a new membrane. And it's always a new thing. And I think, like in the brain, there's a certain likelihood for certain automatisms to be rewarding because they don't involve work. You know, if I always order this product, I can order it without having to think. However, the danger is, and that I think is the interesting thing about your both approaches, is that that a habit, you said there's a certain habit, and a habit is basically the penetration of the existing. This medication, and then I take this medication again. But what if, how do you operationalize all of a sudden a new development? How do you deal with this? How do you make your system agile enough? Well, historically we haven't. You know, we've struggled to become agile enough to take into account, you know, even the growth in tablet over the last 12 months has been, even though we've seen it coming, it's very difficult to move quickly enough to stay ahead of the market. This comes back down to, I think, the kind of chief digital officer organizational piece of the discussion, that it comes down to organization. You know, it comes down to moving away perhaps from some of the historical powerhouses within businesses and changing to a more automated approach to doing marketing, and also investing in the right technologies to allow you to be agile. Mm-hmm. But it really comes down to organization, as far as I'm concerned. I think
the lifetime customer issue, one of the interesting things is at some point they're going to be an unhappy customer. In reality, you know, if you're with someone for life, they're good times and bad times. And I think that's one of the issues, is if you just look at the marketing side and things like that, there's a risk that you forget that actually when you're most likely to turn someone into a lifetime customer is when they have a bad experience and then moving to customer services or operations, you're having to redeliver something, you're having to recommunicate. That's the time when you can really exceed expectation. There's a really good case study with with Microsoft, where they had the 10 people, they had a problem with the Xboxes, and they looked for the 10 people who had been lifetime customers, who were the most pissed off with them, and were most vocal on social channels, and they invited them to the factory and showed them what they were doing and turned them back into lifetime advocates. So I think that's where it has to go beyond just the marketing team. If you're going to commit to lifetime customers, it has to be organization-wide.
I think that's a very good point. It also shows that if you keep falling in love, you just need to buy flowers every once in a while. If you fell out of love, you need to buy another diamond ring to make the people fall in love with you again. So if you lost your customer, it can be very, very expensive to get him or her again. Any last statements? I think we're...
Just on the agility point, I think you're right in that you have to stay agile, because that love can be fickle. If I use tons of apps, and sometimes I'm really loyal to one app, but if something better comes along and it's just better at doing that job, then I will switch, and that's important. So the agility, and I think it is organizational in that. A lot of startups, especially in San Francisco, for example, they are built agile, and so you can look at them for a lot of best practice. Those kind of startups, they don't need social media strategies, they don't need digital strategies, because they're just doing it. And so I think those people are out there, and you can build your organization in whatever way it will be to be agile like that and anticipate these changes and sort of fickle loves that customers can have.
Can I just add one point to this one? Sorry. I think on top of organisational, you need staff who understand all the different areas of the mix, they can't just be digital marketers. They need to understand web development, customer service, procurement. They need to understand every different element of the business. So they need to be more the Barcelona football player that's not a forward or a winger or a back. They need to just be a bit of everything.
And you're looking for those people too?
Yeah, always looking for the right people. So you as a digital marketer need to upskill and cross-skill as much as possible to be agile.